All right, get ready to dive into the fascinating world of canoes.
Canoes.
You heard right. We're going deep into their history and exploring their impact on, well, exploration itself.
Sounds exciting.
You bet. We've got some amazing excerpts from Canoeing, a journey through history and exploration that you, our listeners, have sent over.
I can't wait to unpack this.
Me too. And when I say unpack, I mean really dig into the details. We're talking about canoes dating back thousands of years. Did you know that?
Oh, absolutely. The history of the canoe is incredibly rich, stretching back millennia.
Way back, like 8,000 BC. That's older than the pyramids.
It is. Isn't that amazing? Think about it. Early Europeans navigating in dugout canoes.
Dugout canoes, what are those?
They're exactly what they sound like. Canoes crafted from a single log.
Wow, just a single log.
Yep. Just imagine the effort and skill involved in creating those. It really highlights the ingenuity of early humans.
And their connection to water. I mean, the canoe is found in cultures all over the world.
You're right. It's almost like this universal response to needing to navigate waterways. Whether you're in Europe, Asia, Africa, or the Americas, the canoe pops up.
Speaking of the Americas, the text really emphasizes the skills of indigenous peoples in North America.
Oh, absolutely. They didn't just build canoes, they mastered the art of canoe building.
They really did. They had different designs for different environments and purposes.
Right, like the dugout canoes favored by the coastal tribes in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, those were for the rough waters of the open ocean, right?
Exactly. And you have to picture the scale of these things. They were huge, made from those massive redwood trees along the coastline.
Wow, the sheer size of those trees is mind-boggling. It must have taken a whole community to fell one of those and then shape it into a canoe.
Absolutely a community effort. And then contrast that with the birchbark canoes of the Northeast.
Birchbark. Those sound delicate.
They were lightweight and maneuverable, perfect for those intricate networks of rivers and lakes in the Northeast.
Oh, I get it. So different canoes for different environments, it's all about adapting to your surroundings.
That's it. And speaking of adapting, think about portaging,
Portaging. What's that?
carrying the canoe over land to get to the next waterway. Those birchbark canoes were so light, a single person could carry one.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. It highlights how interconnected canoe design was with the environment.
Absolutely. And speaking of interconnectedness, let's shift our focus to the arrival of Europeans in North America. How did they adapt to this world of canoes?
Well, at first, they weren't exactly known for their canoe building skills.
Right. They had to learn from the indigenous peoples.
Exactly.
Mm.
And they quickly realized the canoe's value, especially during the fur trade.
Yeah, the fur trade. All those waterways became the superhighways of the time.
Absolutely. Canoes were crucial for navigating those vast, dense forests and transporting furs.
The text mentioned two main types of canoes used by fur traders, the North Canoe and the Montreal Canoe. What was the difference between those two?
Well, the North Canoe was smaller, more nimble, perfect for those winding rivers and streams.
So agile and maneuverable.
Right. But for those long-distance hauls on the Great Lakes and major rivers, they needed something bigger.
Enter the Montreal Canoe.
Exactly. These were massive canoes,
Just how big are we talking?
big enough to carry over a ton of cargo.
Whoa, a ton. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And they needed a whole crew to paddle those, right?
You bet. Up to 12 paddlers.
They were like the tractor trailers of the fur trade.
Perfect analogy. The canoe truly transformed exploration and trade in North America.
Yeah.
It opened up a whole new world.
It did. And speaking of changing times, what happened with the rise of railways and steamships? Did the canoe just fade away?
Well, the traditional use of the canoe did decline, but here's the interesting part. It started becoming popular for something else.
What do you mean?
It became a source of leisure and recreation.
Oh, wow, that's a cool twist.
Canoeing clubs started popping up. It became the thing to do even in Europe.
The text mentioned John McGregor and his book, 1,000 Miles in the Rob Ray Canoe. He sounds like quite the adventurer.
He was, and he actually sparked a lot of interest in canoe tourism.
So the canoe went from essential transportation to a symbol of leisure and exploration.
Exactly. And this shift coincided with some other interesting societal changes, like people having more free time and a growing interest in connecting with nature.
Yeah, that makes sense. People wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of city life.
And the canoe offered the perfect way to do that. It's amazing how the canoe evolved, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a testament to its adaptability and enduring appeal. And speaking of adaptations, there's a whole world of modern canoe designs and materials to explore.
Oh, for sure. But I think that's a story for another time.
You're right. We'll save that for part 2 of our canoeing adventure.
Sounds good to me.
Welcome back. It's amazing how the canoe has played such a vital role in so many different cultures.
You're absolutely right. And when we talk about the cultural significance of the canoe, it's impossible to ignore the profound impact it's had on indigenous communities.
The canoe is deeply intertwined with their history, traditions, and even their spirituality.
Exactly. For centuries, it's been a symbol of their connection to the water, to the land, and to their ancestors.
The text mentions festivals and traditional canoe-making practices that are still being carried on today.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. These events are not just about keeping those skills alive, but about passing on knowledge and traditions to younger generations.
It's about keeping that cultural heritage strong and vibrant.
It's a powerful way to connect the past, present, and future.
And, this connection to the past also extends to the environment.
Oh, yeah. The canoe's role in environmental awareness is something I wanted to touch on.
Well, there's something about being out on the water, surrounded by nature, that gives you a unique perspective.
It's like you're experiencing the world from a different angle.
You see the beauty of it, but you also see the fragility.
The impact of pollution, habitat destruction, all of it.
Exactly. And that experience can be a powerful motivator for wanting to protect those natural spaces.
It makes you realize how interconnected we are with the environment.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why canoeing continues to be so popular today.
Yeah, people are craving that connection with nature.
They want to get away from the noise and stress of everyday life and find a sense of peace and tranquility.
And canoeing offers that escape.
It does. It allows you to disconnect from technology, reconnect with yourself, and appreciate the simple beauty of the natural world.
And let's not forget the physical benefits of canoeing. It's a great workout.
Oh, for sure. It's a full-body workout that engages your arms, legs, core, the whole package.
And it's a fun way to get some exercise without even realizing you're working out.
Exactly. But speaking of working out, how about we shift gears and talk about canoe racing?
Oh, yes. That's a whole other level of canoeing.
It is. We briefly touched on canoe slalom and sprint racing earlier, but there's so much more to explore.
So remind me, what's the difference between slalom and sprint racing?
Slalom racing is all about navigating a challenging course marked by gates, paddling through rapids, and maneuvering around obstacles.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. It requires a lot of skill, agility, and quick thinking.
And sprint racing, what's that like?
Sprint racing is about pure speed.
So it's all about going as fast as you can on a flat water course.
You got it. And the races can range in distance from short sprints to longer endurance challenges.
It's amazing how the canoe, a vessel that's been around for thousands of years, has evolved into a modern-day racing machine.
It is. And the athletes who compete in these events are incredibly skilled and dedicated.
It's inspiring to see how the simple act of paddling can be taken to such a competitive level.
Absolutely. And speaking of taking things to another level, how about we talk about the practical side of canoeing?
Yeah, good idea. All this talk about history and racing is great, but what about those who just want to get out on the water and enjoy a relaxing paddle?
Right. Where do they even begin?
That's a great question. Luckily, there are tons of resources out there for beginners, like that canoe rental place mentioned in our source material.
Motor City Paddle Club kayak rentals.
Yep, that's the one. I bet they could provide some great tips and advice for first-timers.
I'm sure they could. And there are plenty of other resources too, like canoe clubs, outfitters, even online communities where people share their experiences and tips.
It's fantastic that there's so much support out there for anyone interested in getting into canoeing.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
Yeah, let's take a break and come back for part 3, where we'll dive deeper into the practical aspects of canoeing, like choosing a canoe, essential gear, and safety considerations. All right, welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground already. The history, the cultural significance, even the competitive spirit of canoeing.
We have.
But now let's shift gears a bit and talk about how our listeners can experience this amazing world of canoeing for themselves.
Yeah, let's get practical.
Right. So much of what we've discussed has been about, the historical and cultural aspects of the canoe.
Definitely.
But now I want to empower our listeners to get out on the water and create their own canoeing ventures.
I like that. Empowering.
So first things first. Choosing the right canoe. With so many options available, it can feel a bit overwhelming.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we can break it down.
Perfect. So where do we start?
Well, the first thing you need to consider is where you'll be paddling.
Location, location, location.
Exactly. Are you thinking about calm lakes, winding rivers,
Yeah.
maybe even some whitewater rapids.
Each of those environments requires a different type of canoe, right?
Right. We talked about recreational canoes, touring canoes, whitewater canoes.
Yeah, so many choices.
It all comes down to matching the canoe to your intended use and the type of water you'll be on.
Makes perfect sense. So if you're picturing yourself paddling across a tranquil lake on a sunny afternoon, a recreational canoe is probably your best bet.
Exactly. Stable, easy to maneuver, perfect for beginners.
And then if you're dreaming of those multi-day adventures, packing your canoe with camping gear and supplies, exploring new waterways, well, that calls for a touring canoe,
You got it.
built for longer distances and extra storage
Yep.
space.
And for the adrenaline junkies out there, those who are drawn to the challenge and thrill of whitewater, you're going to want a specialized whitewater canoe.
Right, designed to handle those bumps and rapids. So we've got the type of canoe figured out, but what about materials? We touched on a whole bunch. Wood, aluminum, fiberglass, Kevlar, carbon fiber.
Each material has its own unique set of pros and cons.
Okay, walk us through it.
Well, wood, of course, has that classic look and feel. It's beautiful.
Timeless.
Yeah, but it requires more maintenance to keep it in good condition.
Right, I could see that.
Aluminum is super tough, super durable. It
Ugh.
can be a bit heavy.
Got it. Fiberglass?
Fiberglass is a good all-around choice. Lightweight, versatile, and generally pretty low maintenance.
I can see why that's popular.
And then you have the high-performance materials like Kevlar and carbon fiber.
The super strong, super light options.
Right. Those are often favored by experienced paddlers and those who do a lot of racing.
So we've got the canoe sorted, but what about all the other essential gear?
Yeah, let's talk about that. A paddle, for example, is kind of important.
Yeah, I was going to say, a paddle might be useful.
But before we even get to the paddle, let's talk about safety gear.
Of course, safety always comes first.
A properly fitted life jacket is an absolute must-have,
Non-negotiable.
no matter your skill level. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned paddler, a life jacket is your best friend out there.
Right. So life jacket, paddle, dot, what else?
A dry bag is a good idea. You want to keep your phone, keys, any other valuables safe and dry, especially if you get some unexpected splashes or, a little rain.
Speaking of rain, what about clothing? Any tips for our listeners on what to wear on a canoeing trip?
Dress in layers is always a good rule of thumb. The weather can change quickly out on the water.
Right. Layers are key.
And choose quick-drying fabrics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're bound to get a little wet. A hat and sunscreen are important, too, for sun protection.
And maybe some water shoes?
Good call. Those are helpful, especially if you're going to be getting in and out of the canoe on rocky shores or riverbanks.
All right, so we've got our gear sorted. We're dressed appropriately. Now, before we actually get out on the water, what are some key safety considerations?
Always check the weather forecast before you head out.
Right. That seems obvious, but it's easy to forget.
It is. And be aware of any potential hazards in the area where you'll be paddling.
Like what?
Strong current, underwater obstacles, things like that. It's always better to be prepared and know what you're getting into.
Right. Knowledge is power.
It really is. And speaking of knowledge, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with basic paddling techniques.
Yeah, the how-to of actually moving the canoe.
Exactly. And how to maneuver it. And just in case, practice what to do if you capsize.
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't thought about that.
It's always good to be prepared for the unexpected.
Absolutely. So if someone is completely new to canoeing, maybe taking a lesson from an experienced instructor would be a good idea.
Absolutely. That's a great way to learn the basics and build confidence.
And one last safety tip. Always let someone know your paddling plans.
So important. Tell someone where you're going, what route you'll be taking, and when you expect to be back.
Right. Just in case anything happens.
Exactly. Safety first. Always.
I couldn't agree more. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the ancient history of the canoe to the exciting world of modern-day canoeing, it's been quite a journey.
It has. And, I think it's amazing how the canoe, this simple vessel, can connect us to so many different things.
Yeah.
To history, to nature, to different cultures, to a sense of adventure.
It's almost like this timeless symbol of human ingenuity and exploration.
It is. And it reminds us that adventure can be found anywhere, even in our own backyards.
Exactly. So whether you're a seasoned paddler or just starting out, I hope our deep dive has inspired you to grab a paddle, get out on the water, and experience the magic of canoeing for yourself.
Happy paddling, everyone.
And until our next deep dive, keep exploring.